From Benton Bank to Benton Toon, there's not a pitman's rare. So when we get to moor, yet play footy again nowhere. Then high footy and ho, footy and footy again nowhere. And when you get to moor, yet play footy again nowhere.
I was brought up in a footballing family. I was brought up in the Milburns when I had 4 uncles, Jack, George, Jimmy and Stan, and a cousin called Jackie Milburn, who left us no choice but to be a footballer. When I was brought up in the northeast of England, all you had was football.
Big Jack, a legend who's found fame in 2 countries, and yet one who's never been separated from his Geordie roots or his beer and fags image. Jack and I have been friends for years, and I believe it's the retaining of the common touch that's endeared him to millions.
I would have gone down the pit, which I did. I actually resigned from the pit, went to the manager's office, said I don't want to be a pitman anymore, and left and went away to Leeds for a trial. That was even before my brother had gone to Manchester United. So I was always going to be a footballer. I didn't have a choice.
Can you remember the first day you arrived at Leeds?
Very much. My mother bought me a new suit. It was the first suit I'd had. It was blue pinstripe. I've got a picture somewhere of me standing there on the day I arrived at Leeds with my mother and my father and me. I was a real sight.
Who was the manager?
At that time, Major Frank Buckley, who had a name for bringing young people through the game. And I became a Buckley boy at the age of 15 and a half. Stayed with an old lady called Mary Crowther in Beeston in Leeds, which was at the hill above Elland Road. My first memory was standing there looking down onto Elland Road and wondering how I would do. You'd see the whole of the ground spread out below you. I never thought I was a good player. I never thought it would keep me on at something. It was one of those situations where you're not sure. And Race Carter, who was the manager at that time, had taken the team to Holland on a tour. And I went to see Arthur Crowther, the old secretary, and I said, has Mr. Carter left word if you're going to sign me at 17 or not? And he said, he's left word. I want to sign you, and you're on 18 and 14, which was near enough senior money.
So let's clear that up. It was £18 during the winter, £14 during the summer.
That's right. That's right. And I went away back home again, a young professional, and all it takes. I didn't really think I was a good player until I went across, after I'd signed professional for Leeds, and I went to a shop across the road, and a guy called John had this shop. It was a sweet shop we used to use a lot. And as I went in, John said to me, have you signed? And I said, yeah. I said, why? He said, I've had half the Football League in here today asking if you've signed, which meant that if Leeds United hadn't signed me, there were a lot of people had been in who wanted to sign me.
Why did you not think you were a good player?
I don't know. I had a brother called Bobby and 2 other brothers called Tommy and Gordon, who were 6 years younger than us. Well, 6 and 9 years younger than us. Everybody in Ashington would tell you that Bobby Charlton was going to play for England. He was going to be a great player from him being 6, 7 years of age. He was strong, left, right-footed, good balance, good skills. He had everything, our kid. When I was 6 foot nearly, leggy, like a giraffe, as I finished up being called. So it was always what our kid would do. But I actually developed very well over them. At the age of 17, I played in the first team.
What sort of a club was Leeds then, in the mid-50s?
Oh, nowhere near what a football club should be and is now. The only time we saw Raish was when Sam Bolton was on his way down from his office, who was the chairman at the time, and then Raish would come out onto the ground and get out of his way.
So the chairman could see him?
Yeah. We had trainers. We used to run aside, walk aside, run aside, walk aside. We'd have a 5-a-side or a 6-a-side or a 7-a-side or whatever number of people we had on the car park, which then was not tarmac, it was only cinders. We never were allowed to play on the main pitch or train on the main pitch, which is amazing, but most football clubs were exactly the same in those days. John Charles was the hero at Elland Road at that time. Like when I was 17, John was just coming out of the army at the age of 20. He had done his national service. Tremendous player, the best player I ever saw, the most effective player I ever saw. If I had to pick one player in all the people I've ever seen in the world to start picking a team round, I would pick John Charles. Big, powerful, strong lad, great friend to this day.
Jack succeeded John Charles at centre-half and went on to play a grand total of 772 matches for Leeds. That's more than anybody else. Jack was another one clubman, and he won every domestic honour during his 20-year stay at Elland Road. Although there was a time when it all could have been so different.
I wanted to be away from Elland Road for 2 or 3 years, and I caused a lot of aggravation at Elland Road for a while. I could have gone to Manchester United, I didn't. I could have gone to Liverpool, I didn't. And I fell out with Matt Busby at Manchester because he was delaying signing me until he had another look at another player in the August, and I was causing havoc at Leeds, wanting to be away. And I finished up saying to Matt Buzzy, I'm sorry, I'm leaving now, and I'm not going to play for Man United. I'm going to go back to Leeds. I'm going to apologise to the manager, and I'm going to sign a contract, and I'm going to stay there. And I did. Exactly that way. And I stayed at Elland Road then and got involved in everything. I mean, I never had any coaching until a guy called Jack Taylor became manager, which was at the age of probably 22, 23. He suddenly started to show me how to kick the ball, how to trap, how to tackle, how to do things properly and practice them. And then Don Revie, of course, took over. We had Sid Owen, Les Cocker, who were the two trainers, ex-pros, but qualified people who understood coaching and would work you at the job you were to be doing in the team. We had arguments with Sid Owen over football, but at least we were discussing things about the game that had never happened before. I had my differences with Don Revie. I mean, Don believed in man-to-man marking systems. I never believed in that because it pulls people out of position. You've got to be a zonal player. You've got to pick up what you see, know what's going to come into the area and read the game and the situations as you see it. And Don said to me one day, OK, you organise the back and leave the rest to me.
So you were the man who really controlled the defence of Leeds United?
He made me captain, but I didn't like running out in front of everybody. When I was going out in front of Billy Bremner and Johnny Giles, who were only about 5'6" and 5'8", and I'm 6'2" running out at the beginning, I said, nah, give it to Billy. I'll still do the job at the back, which suited me fine. We had all sorts of young lads around about us, like Norman Hunter and Terry Cooper, Paul Reaney and Paul Madeley, who needed somebody telling them where to go, what to do and that. As a centre-back, I always find you need to do as little as possible and have a great game and let everybody else do it. But as long as you're fresh and can see and read situations in front of you and direct people in front of you, you're not called upon to do very much.
Do you think that's as good a crop of young players that's produced by one club since the war?
I do. They all went on to become great players. I mean, we had Peter Lorimer, Eddie Gray, who came in after that. Billy Bremner. I mean, Billy was only a kid as well. He came as a kid. I think it was not as much to do with the sort of players they were when they came to the club as it was the work they did at the club.
Yet, they were never popular. Why do you think that was?
When we first went into the first division, we were tipped that we would go down back into the second division. In fact, we finished second in the league and lost the title to Manchester United on goal difference. But that year, we were a bit ruthless. We wanted to win games. It was a case of, you kick me, we'll all kick you. It was one for all and all for one. But that 1 year labelled us. We could never get rid of that label because nobody in this world could ever say that the Leeds United team I played in played that way for the 10 years that we were successful in the way we played. They never forgave us for that year.
How good was Revie?
Don was the most honest, straightforward guy I ever met. If he made you a promise, he would shift heaven and earth to keep it.
Were you surprised when he left to take over the England team when, you know, the team was actually in the European Cup?
No, I wasn't surprised when he left Elland Road. I mean, it was on the cards that England needed a new manager and Don Revie was going to be one of the ones that they would want to go there. Don used to say to me, the England team is almost impossible to do because you sat there on a Saturday night when you've picked your team and you've thought about it for a while and then you sit by the telephone waiting for somebody to ring you and tell you that they've pulled out with a groin strain or they've got an injury. So then you've got to rehash the whole new team. And he didn't like, I don't think, international football for that reason.
Jack's own international career began in 1965 when he was almost 30 years old. He may have been a late developer at England level, but Alf Ramsey regarded him as the perfect man to prop up Bobby Moore at the heart of the England defence.
I always remember saying to Alf Ramsey in a hotel, in the bar, and Alf came in and I was drinking a pint of beer on a Saturday night after having played in London, and he came across and said, "I was still on the pints, are we, Jack?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "I've been playing today, and I'm not due in till tomorrow." We talked a bit, and it's about the first conversation I ever held with Alf, actually. I said, "And why did you pick me?" He said, "Well, I've seen you play. You're quite mobile. You're a good tackler and very good header of the ball." He says, "As I have a pattern of play in my mind, the way I want the team to play, I pick the appropriate players to fit the pattern." He said, "But I don't necessarily always pick the best players, Jack." "I know you won't trust Bobby Moore." And I said, "What do you mean, Alf?" He said, "Well, when Gordon Banks gives the ball to Bobby Moore, Bobby will join in the build-up right through midfield to the forward positions," he said. "But as soon as he goes on one of these join-in, you will then pick up the space behind him so that if he makes a mistake, you're there to cover it." And I said, "Well, that's standard practice, the way the game works. I'd expect somebody to do it for me if I went on one of them runs." I think that's what Alf meant by not picking the best players. I was never a player. I accept that. I was never the best passer of the ball. I was never that comfortable on the ball, so I got rid of it. I got the ball, I'd give it to somebody, or I would knock it forward to a forward player and let him bring it back into midfield. But I never dream of trying to do anything silly around the edge of the 18-yard box. That's from me bringing up days in Northumberland. You know, there are times to play and there are times to get rid of it. I always felt fairly comfortable. I really found international football easier than club football.
When it came to the 1966 World Cup, England got off to a slow start with goals at a premium. The turning point proved to be the introduction of Geoff Hurst at the quarter-final stage.
I remember looking at Jimmy Greaves and he had a cut on his leg, a gash, and it was blue and yellow and all sorts of colours. And I didn't think Jimmy could have played in the next game anyway if Alf had played him. But Alf didn't play him and he brought in Geoff Hurst. And from that moment on, things started to look a little bit different. Goals came at the right time. Whether it was because we had Martin Peters, who knew where Geoff Hurst would be and would deliver balls for him, whether it was because he took a little bit of the weight off Bobby Charlton in centre midfield, who knows? But the confidence was much better then. I was delighted when we got to the semi-final. I felt whatever happened in the semi-final would be okay because we had justified with being in the World Cup. Whether we were going to win it or not didn't matter. I was quite relaxed in the semi-final against Portugal. The only guy that caused me any problems was a big lad, Torres, who kept pulling away to the far post, and he was a big lad, about 6'6", about 4 inches bigger than me.
From Benfica.
And they would knock balls to him to knock down for Eusebio, who made his runs and things.
Of course, what happened now is history, probably English football's greatest ever moment. What did you do after the game? How did you celebrate?
I didn't, because my wife was expecting at the time, and she had our Peter about a week later after the World Cup. We had the reception and everything, and we went out on the town. And I finished up somewhere in Leytonstone at a party, and I slept on the floor. Got a car back the following morning, and my mother was playing ale because I hadn't been to bed all night. And I said, Mother, we just won the World Cup.
The period then that went on after 66 up to 1970, England's team was pretty stable, and I would have thought up to 1970, going to Mexico, you know, we had a fair chance of perhaps holding on to the trophy.
I thought we had probably the best England team. The only thing I didn't agree with Alf was that he decided that Brian LeBourne was a better player than me. I'd only lost one game playing with the England team since I joined it, but I didn't make a fuss about it. You know, without Alf picks a team, you accept it. Leeds United at that time were in European Cup competitions, and I pulled out of a lot of games in that year because of the pressures that we had at Leeds. We'd won the FA Cup. We'd finished second in the league or something. We'd won the European, Fairs Cup, and I played most of the games for Leeds, and I had a very, very good season. But I was then getting on, 33, and maybe I felt that the heat was too much for me. He maybe was right in that.
Footballer of the Year in 1967, Charlton retired at the age of 37, and like others in the World Cup squad, he went into management. He was easily the most successful of them all.
I was a staff coach with the FA from the age of, I think, about 26, 27. So I always wanted to stay in the game and be part of the game. I'd been approached for 2 or 3 jobs that last year at Leeds. And then Doc Phillips came and asked me if I would become manager at Middlesbrough. So I said yes.
Dr. Phillips was the England team doctor?
England team doctor. I was with the England team when he asked me. Middlesbrough under Stan Anderson at that time had quite a good team together. They'd failed to get promotion by a point or 2 points. They looked good, had good players. Stuart Bone, Willie Madron, John Craggs, David Armstrong, David Mills. I got Bobby Murdoch for nothing from Jock Stein. And Bobby was exactly what I needed. And we murdered the second division. He won it by miles. I was made manager of the year that year, funnily enough. I was sat with Bill when I got the award, when they announced the award, and Bill looked at me across the table and he said, "You owe me £1,000, which is what I got for being manager of the year. I mean, for me to get it over Bill Shankly was unbelievable. In my first year in management. We had 3 years in the first division, very comfortable years, and then I decided I'd had enough.
You never had a contract, did you?
Never had a contract in my life, no. Always agreements. Just agreements. I'll stay for this length of time, and I did. I always felt that 4 years at any club was long enough.
After Middlesbrough, Jack managed Sheffield Wednesday and then had a brief spell at Newcastle. He walked away from both of them when he was ready. Events then took an unlikely turn.
I was in a hotel in Birmingham when a guy called Jimmy Armfield phoned me up and said, "Congratulations." And I said, "What do you mean?" "What for?" He said, "You're now the Irish manager." And I didn't even know. They had tried to get hold of me at home, but being on the road, my wife didn't know where I was. I used to keep in touch with you because we used to do an article together.
That's right.
So you always knew where I would be. So I went to Ireland and I had a famous press conference where they wanted to know everyone in the world and I'd got the job except me. And got on with the job then. I had thoughts on international football, how we should play. Everybody played the same way in the world. I went to the World Cup in Mexico. They were like peas in a pod. They played through a playmaker. They all played a sweeper. They all played possession football. And then nobody would commit anybody forward until the central midfield player, the playmaker, was in possession in a good area, and then they would commit themselves a little bit. And I thought, well, we can't enter this fray with the Irish team and play that way, because it'll take us years to catch up and produce a team with the quality that they had got, the type of game they played. So we introduced a game like we play the ball into the corners, condense the areas, put them under pressure and play from there. And it worked a charm. It wasn't a knockabout, take your time game. It was a rush game, more of the sort of game that the Irish expected of their own Gaelic players. You get the ball forward, you compete, you chase people, you close people down, you create excitement, you win balls when you shouldn't win balls, you commit yourself to the game. A lot of the pundits didn't like it. The teams that we played against hated it. They'd never experienced anything like we dictated to them.
How did you feel when you actually had to play against England in the World Cup?
When you're a professional footballer, you sell your services. If I left Newcastle United and went to manage Leeds, my complete dedication would be to the new team I was playing for, who were paying me wages. And it's very much like that in international football. We played at Wembley, and we actually should have beaten England about 3-1, and we finished with drawn 1 each in one of the World Cup qualifiers. When we equalised, Niall Quinn, a journalist in the Daily Mirror, said he felt sick when he saw me jumping, leaping about when Ireland had equalised. I'm paid by them. I've been with them for 6 years. What did he expect? And we were a match for anybody in the world. I mean, Ireland actually beat Brazil. Not many people know that, but we did. Okay, it was at Land's End Road and it was 1-0, but we beat Brazil, and we've beaten every team of any quality in the world. I am now an Irish citizen. Not an honorary, I'm an Irish citizen. I've got my passport, my wife's got a passport. I'm a freeman of the city of Dublin. I've got masses and masses of friends in the Republic of Ireland. I love the place to death. I've got a house over there. I get back and forth whenever I can. And I suppose now, after 10 years, I'm as much Irish as I am English. I can still talk the way to do. You know?
Jack finished with the Irish team 2 days before Christmas 1995, in circumstances that hardly reflected his immense contribution to the Republic, even if he had already made the decision to resign.
I wanted to leave it until the January, when I would have done 10 years with the Irish. But a certain group wanted me over there to resign so they could get on appointing a new manager, something they didn't do for about 4 months after I'd left anyway. So that annoyed me. But I was always leaving. There was no question of that. The team needed to be restructured and rebuilt. And when you've been there 10 years, that makes it that much harder. I'd done me bit. It was time for me to leave. Have I missed football? Yes, I have. I miss the involvement with the players because I'm not really a manager, I'm a coach. I miss it when I go to a football match because I've nothing to go to the football match for, unless I'm supporting the club. Like if I go and see Middlesbrough, I want Middlesbrough to win, support them. Sunderland, same. Newcastle, exactly the same. I love the North East clubs. I'd like to see them do well. So I'm on their side. But I've nothing to look at and see. I've no player to watch. I've no analysis to do on the game. I've no notes to make. I've no preparation to do for a game that's coming up. I've no young lads to have a look at or try or to talk to or to try and bring through. But then I look at it and I'm 62. I used to have a friend of mine called Jim Bullock, and Jim used to say, the moment you've turned 55, if you can afford to retire, you should. Because you've then got left the last 10 active years of your life where you can do what you want to do. Now, I left it till I was 60, and then I resigned. I've been so busy this last 18 months, I wouldn't have had time to take a job. Sometimes I do miss it, but not enough to go back into it on a 7 days a week basis.
Going back, right back to our beginning again now, from when you were a 16-year-old boy going to Leeds, has it been a good road?
Oh, it's been tremendous. I mean, I never expected to achieve anything like I achieved in football when I was a kid at 15. Never. I mean, to be a World Cup winner, to have won league championships, UEFA Cups, FA Cups, I've got all the medals. Managed very successfully a national side, done very well for 3 football clubs. Because one thing about me is every football club I've ever managed has always prospered financially. Once it's sound, you're okay. Then you can do what you want from there. I hope it settles down a little bit and we actually get to a position where the football clubs know what they're doing, because I don't think half of them know what they're getting into at this moment. What we're doing to the third and fourth division wants to be clarified, because when you introduce this rule that all the good players can leave and go somewhere else at the end of a contract, must worry them above anybody, because their lifeline has been the money they're able to get from transferring players to a higher division. And as these problems aren't going to go away, I wish I was an agent.
Well, perhaps there's a job there for you.
Not me, pal, not me. I'm too honest for that lot.
Big Jack, now OBE and Deputy Lieutenant of Northumbria, will spend his time doing his own thing as ever, with looking after his grandchildren and fishing high on the priority list. But to most of us, he will remain as the big, affable Geordie who conquered the football game both as a player and a manager. Few can equal him.
Aye, footy and ho, footy and footy, you get nowhere. But when you get the more yet, play footy again nowhere.